And we have some breaking news that's coming in. Around 2,000 people have been killed in Iran protests as per an Iranian official, blaming, quote, terrorists for the deaths of civilians and security personnel. So this is the official word that's now coming in. Remember, Iran ordered a now more than 4-day shutdown of internet as well there in the region because of what it has claimed to be terrorist operations that began during protests that had initially sparked by economic grievances. And this is what officially now Iran is also mentioning. They're also talking about that blackout that has sparked an international outcry, and that number of casualties, the people who've been killed, has now gone up to 2,000 officially. My colleague Akanksha Swaroop with those details. Akanksha, this is the number that's been put out officially by Iran. How does one look at all of the developments coming in from there?
Right. Till just days ago, they were only maintaining a death toll of say 70, and now all of a sudden you have that whopping figure of 2,000 as far as the overall death toll is concerned. Only goes on to indicate the gravity, the magnanimity in terms of the way the entire crackdown is also happening by say the IRGC and the Iranian regime. The question now is that is this really a Western narrative? Clearly not, because these protests are now ballooning into a wider Iranian revolution. As we said, that what is the difference between 2009, 2019 versus 2021 and 2022 versus now? Well, they are ballooning, and this is not just because of an economic failure in Iran. You're looking at women who are still finding closure after the killing of Masha Amini and the wider women freedom movement, that women life freedom under which that movement had begun in 2022. So you have angry women, you have the merchants of Tehran Bazaar who are also part of the 1979 revolution, remember, joining in. And more importantly or interestingly, Griha, this time around we are seeing how these protests have reached the hinterland. Say the other parts of Iran, close to over 31 provinces are witnessing these protests. That clearly goes on to indicate how it's ballooning into a wider movement. But with 2,000 protesters already dead, and what's even deeply shocking is that Iran or the Iranian regime officials are calling them terrorists, because remember, Iran and the Ayatollah's regime are maintaining since day one that there are external forces at play, even more so after the US President Donald Trump threatened a direct intervention if peaceful protesters were to be attacked. They're saying that it is the United States and Israel which are fomenting these protests. Now the question is, will the US actually send boots on the ground, given that this overall death toll has now reached 2,000 and counting? What happens to these protesters? Who will provide them protection? There's also the other side to the narrative, which believes that the Iranians will fight for their own rights. This is going to ensure that there is going to be a new revolution like that of 1979. All of this, not to forget, as Reza Pahlavi is also planning a return. Will that mean that there's going to be a new regime? Of course, the US has clearly indicated that they do not want Reza Pahlavi to take over the ends in Iran if there were to be a change in the Iranian regime. So far, it doesn't seem like it, because the IRGC is heavily cracking down, given the death toll is now reaching 2,000. But what happens next? Remember, the US President will also be addressing a meeting today with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. We will know by tonight what is going to be the larger plan by the United States. We await a confirmation in terms of the US strategy, because Donald Trump really doesn't back down from what he says. So is the US now going to intervene, given that there are already 2,000 protesters which have been declared dead?